Hi, I'm Ted Santos, and I am your host of Straight Talk. We are the talk show that is made for men by men, except ladies. We love having you there. Join us for the conversation. And we come to you every Sunday. And we talk about life, love, social issues, all from a man's perspective. So it's a platform that's really needed. I know there are quite a few out there. But I'd say we cater very much to the thinking man. The man who wants to see beyond the surface, strip back, peel off the layers, and see what's really happening in our world. Understand the problem so that when we can get to solutions, we're given the right solutions because we clearly understand the problem. And too often, and for decades, we've tried to give solutions without actually understanding what was happening, getting to the source of it. So today, I want to talk about business. I have a really strong background in business. I've run a number of companies as an executive, a chief operating officer, and currently I do a lot of advisory to CEOs and other executives, and I do them for mid-size, not small businesses. I have worked with some, but I have a particular focus on mid-sized businesses because they have the same kind of complexity as a Fortune 500, except that they just always don't have access to the same resources. And in working with CEOs, interesting how men are actually in conversations about having women in the workforce, right? Not just women, getting them in leadership positions or positions of influence. And yet, and still, we have articles like this, right? Avoiding women at work is not a solution, it's discrimination. And this is very much related to Me Too. So the title of this video is Here's the Perfect Solution for Sexual Harassment and Discrimination in the Workplace. So I'm going to provide a solution, but I'm going to read this article to you. If you follow me on Twitter or on Facebook, you'll find a link. You'll find this article on either one of those. I'll post it underneath in the notes section for this video, and it's in a blog called NAVEX, N-A-V-E-X, NAVEX Global, and it's about risk and compliance matters. So, risk and compliance, this may very much deal with a board of directors and the sort of policies that they would want to put in place to support the successful operation of an organization. So this article was actually written in February of 2019, so a little bit over a year. And if you recall, we had lots of Me Too cases and discrimination, and this year in February we still had impeachment trials, and Me Too was there. Since this pandemic has kicked into full force, all of that has been, I don't know if to say it's pushed in the parking lot, but it's been silenced. For some reason, women are not screaming about Me Too. If anything, perhaps they're looking for protection and safety. And as men, that is our job, right? To make sure they feel safe and there are no threats. And this pandemic doesn't discriminate. Even though I hear it's taking men out more, that there's still plenty of women, especially if you have a compromised immune system. So women are looking for men to put in all the structures, safety structures to keep us safe. So screaming about Me Too and discrimination just doesn't seem like an appropriate action, so that it's been silenced. So I want to address this article, and this is the woman who's written the article, Ingrid Fredine. That's her. And Ingrid seems to feel that men are avoiding women in the workplace. So I'm going to read some of this I'm going to read some highlights, right? And she actually gives some solutions, and these are things that you'll be surprised that in a country where due process is supposedly part of our culture, you would think it would be automatic, right? Except it seems when it's Me Too or any kind of rape or sexual harassment allegations, the man is found guilty before proven guilty, even if he's not guilty, which is a problem on its own. So let's get into this. So Ingrid says, while there are many important takeaways from the Me Too movement, there's one in particular that strikes a very concerning chord. In the wake of Me Too, men have expressed fear and concern about being falsely accused of harassment. I wonder why that has happened. The answer? Simply don't interact with women in the workplace. Limit conversations, don't talk to them, and certainly don't meet with them alone in a room. I mean, you ladies know that men will want to find solutions, and if you're threatening men and their livelihood, and they're going to resolve it. And she continues, and while this rumbling of concern has been heard most loudly in the financial sector, it surfaced again in recent days, of all places, the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. So if any of you have not heard of Davos, it is like the most prestigious leadership World Economic Summit. It happens every year in January, and this was written February 12th, so it is in response to the Davos meeting that took place last year. And it's some say some of the greatest thought leaders, thinking minds, leaders of organizations actually present at Davos, and it attracts a lot of leaders. So it's a pretty big event, and it takes, I think it's about 1 week that the entire event lasts. So Davos is making a big deal out of men shying away from women in the workplace, not wanting to spend alone time and risk being falsely accused. In fact, she writes that the New York Times and Washington Post say that the elite in Davos talk about sexual harassment and said that it may be one of the biggest, the fear of mentoring and working with women in Me Too and in Me Too era was discussed right up there with war and cyber attacks. So, men not wanting to mentor women is as critical as cyber attacks and war, where predominantly men in war are dying. Right? I think it was from 1996 until 2016, over 6,800 men died from enemy gunfire, right? From enemy fire. During the same time, 20 years, 46, in Spanish, 46, 46 women died. So those 6,800 men dying from enemy fire is more important than women being mentored in corporations, because men do not want to be falsely accused of doing something inappropriate. And we've seen men come down, their careers tumbling down. All right, now I'll talk to you about one or two cases of men who actually had their careers devastated. She goes on to write about a man who did not want to be identified. He said, "I now think twice about spending one-on-one time with young female colleague." That's an executive who told the New York Times that he thinks twice about spending one-on-one time. I mean, did women think the big picture and long term, what would happen I mean, they've been driving at this equal rights. They want equal opportunity. And they do not take into account that men and women are not equal. And I guess when you find out that you're not as competitive, you don't have the biochemistry of a man, so they want to lower the bar and call masculinity toxic. So I guess they assume if they can make men less masculine or less aggressive, less competitive, it makes it easier for women to be on par. Look, here's the fact. Not all men are qualified to be leaders. I mean, they're just not. And men understand that. You don't have all men fighting and saying, I want to be in a leadership position, right? So I'm painting a picture because I'm going to give you a perfect solution for this. But I want to paint a picture of the environment. Women have done a great job of creating and not wanting to be responsible for it. The article goes on it says, saying you won't mentor a young woman or that you won't take her to a client dinner is admitting that you're intentionally blocking her from the kinds of opportunities vital for career advancement. That's by definition discriminatory. But as bleak as it sounds, it's possible that there is a bright side. Male executives' willingness to talk about discrimination means no one can try to argue that discrimination doesn't actually exist, and in that lies the potential for real progress. So, the funny thing is, she just wants to talk about men that are discriminating. I mean, how do we address the false allegations that happen or the misinterpretations? Right, men are being censored. We can't even tell a woman that she looks nice. I mean, men have been in the workplace for a long time. I mean, you go into a male locker room and men, we talk about women. Just like in a women's locker room, they talk about men. And at the workplace, not only are you there to accomplish the organization's mission, but it's social interaction. It's part of the human behavior and dynamic to bond with one another, right? So that you can get things done, great collaboration, and you're there for one another. It's not just, a corporation exists because of people. And there's human interaction. And to constrain men and tell men that you're confined and you can only speak about these kinds of things that meet the approval of women, you're also confining the mind of men. So you women want to come into our space and then tell us what to think. And this is not even touching on what the gay movement has done. So we want to just talk about it. Women want to just talk about one side of this. So avoidance is bad for all of those involved. So she's saying progress is definitely needed. A recent article from the World Economic Forum focused on leaders in Me Too area, noting that in 2018, there were only 24 women CEOs at Fortune 500 companies. In senior manager level positions, men outnumber women 2-1, and only 23% of C-suite members are women. So a lot of women complain that corporate America is a rat race. It's a dog-eat-dog world. It's competitive. It is. I mean, if women were competing against men in any sport, you can't ask men to be less competitive to make women comfortable. So when you understand a high-performing athlete a man is going to have some power, some vigor. He's going to have horsepower that women just don't have. And why aren't we accepting that? Now, just because professional men in a corporation are not athletes doesn't mean that the same mindset does not exist in a corporation. The same aggression, the same vigor, the same competitiveness is part of our biochemistry, it's part of our biology, it's who we are. And women just are not built, they're not constructed to be that way. Why do we have a problem with that? Now, there are women who are exceptions to the rules. And there are women who have a biochemistry that is different from the majority of women. They're outliers. And that may account for the 24 women who are CEOs. Right? And I don't know if someone's actually keeping stats to see what the performance is like for those women who are CEOs. I know at one time the CEO of General Motors, a woman, was the highest paid CEO, and I don't understand the basis of paying her more than everyone else aside from being a woman. I mean, is that intellectually wise? Like, is that a wise move to pay someone more just for gender? And for the record, women who never marry, single women, never marry, never have children, earn as much, if not more, than men. So the women who have children, right, and I know a lot of CEOs from my work, one of their concerns was always that high-performing women, you build them up, you fast-track them, and then what do? They get married, they get pregnant, and they're gone. And all the investment is gone. So there is a small percentage of women who actually rise up. Just like not all men rise up to be leaders, not all women. Like, men do not have a problem with that. You know, there are some guys who get overlooked, but there are a lot of guys who get overlooked because we're pushing to have women in the workplace. Is that discrimination? And not only do we get guys who are overlooked, I hear a ton of stories about men who are high-performing salesmen, and they work in an organization where there are one or two, there are a couple of women who are very low performers. They're single mothers, and there's a manager who's a female who doesn't want to fire that underperforming woman. Why? Well, she's a single mother, and that would be unfair, and we can't do that. Except we have no problem laying off a man who's underperforming. So if we're going to talk about discrimination, let's put everything on the table. And so far, I don't see anything in this article that addresses women who are underperformers and get preferential treatment for being a woman, especially a single mother. That's discrimination. Men who are overlooked because we want to have more women. We're not looking for the best person for the job. We just have to put a skirt in the job. So there's a bit more. So she also says these numbers are obviously problematic. To have 23% of women C-suite, 24 women who are CEOs, those numbers are obviously problematic. If left unchecked, male executives' refusal to work with women attempting to climb the corporate ladder will only make the problem worse. It will also stymie initiatives underway across corporate America aimed at making organizations more diverse. Okay. If women have limited mentors to help them rise through the ranks, it will be near impossible for them to get to the top or even to the middle. You know, there are also a lot of articles that show that women don't mentor and support or even network with one another. They abandon one another. So here we have women who are completely depending on men. Why aren't women taking the initiative to support other women instead of dropping it on the shoulders of men? If you really are that committed to having women move up, I mean, I've got an even better solution. But before I get to that, I want to talk about some of her solutions. So she asks, what should organizations do? Organizations must start at the root cause of this problem. Higher-ups fears that, oh, wait, sorry. Before I even get to that, I want to talk about something, root cause, the fears. It's funny that I'm doing this, and it's May. Right now, we're in May of 2020. In May of 2011, I actually wrote an article. And I wrote an article about the managing director of the IMF. IMF is International Monetary Fund. I mean, this is a huge organization that loans money to countries. So, impressive organization, influential, lots of power. And at that time, in May of 2011, when I wrote this article, the head of the IMF was Dominique Strauss-Kahn. Imagine, you're the head of an extraordinarily powerful financial, economic, global organization. He was from France. This guy had aspirations to take his career, political aspirations. They say his next step was to be the president of France. Well, that came to a screeching halt because he stayed in a hotel right there in New York, Sofitel Hotel. It's right on like 44th Street. And one of the help workers accused him of rape, of attempted rape. She made the accusation. Dominique takes the walk of shame. He's arrested. They take him into the police custody. They wouldn't release him on bail. And he's basically guilty. He loses his job. And his career is devastated. Only to find out that the woman made false allegations. At that level, I mean, can you understand why men would be reluctant to be in a situation where they will actually have a woman make false allegations? And this woman's writing this article as though it never happens. So Dominique loses his job, and guess who takes his place? Christine Lagarde. Lagarde, my French is horrible. But a woman takes his position. She fills in. So this is what I was saying. If women cannot compete with men at the level at which men operate, and all you have to do is look at the Olympics. I know we have lady football, but put those women in the NFL and they will understand what competition is like, what aggression is like. And it's not just testosterone that makes men more aggressive and build muscle. There are other biochemicals that men have that make them extraordinarily more aggressive. In fact, 10-year-old boys are 20 times more likely to fight than 10-year-old girls. And those boys are able to sit at the same lunch table later in school and laugh and joke. The 10-year-old girls argue with words, and the one who wins bullies her probably for the rest of her life and gets other girls to taunt her with words. So it's like women don't understand how we're able to do that. And it's almost like they condemn us. So instead of women rising up and competing at a man's level, and there is a solution to this, they want to pull us down. If they pull men down, then it makes it easier for them to say, now we're equal. So what does this woman Ingrid say we should do? Organizations must start at the root cause of this problem. Higher-ups fears that women are going to make unfounded and possibly career-ending sexual harassment claims. Yes, I wonder why men do that. Why would they be worried about that? In many cases, men don't trust their employers to believe that they're innocent or fear they will become the next person fired for harassment. Right. You're a guy. You've put in your time, your education, your training. Someone makes a false allegation. You're like Dominic at the IMF. You lose your job. And I wonder what percentage of those guys have the position replaced by a woman. Right? Just if you can't rise up, you lower it or you eliminate them. And I mean, due process. Innocent until proven guilty goes out the window. So, but if employers deal with sexual harassment claims responsibly and transparently, this fear should be alleviated. I have a better solution. Well, let's look at her solutions, right? Solution 1, avoid knee-jerk reactions. So employers should never take a side or assume they know an answer to a harassment claim before understanding the whole story. Yeah. I mean, you would wonder in a nation like the U.S., we call it a democracy, but for those of you who don't know, we are a republic, not a democracy. But we're supposed to be a civilized democracy. Yet, for some reason, we make men guilty just because the woman said he did it. We never get the facts. You know, and that's amazing because we also don't want to talk about the amount of sexual harassment and actually rape that women do and how women abuse the system. So the fact that they can just say he touched me, he was inappropriate, the man loses his job just like that. The witch hunt begins. If a man does anything inappropriate with a woman who's a minor, we want that guy under the jail. We want him punished. There's no statutes of limitations. We should be able to go after him at any time. Except women don't want to talk about the amount of women who rape young boys, 13-year-old boys. On my show, I actually had a guy who went into foster care. And at 13, he was being taken care of. His foster mother was in her mid-20s, and she was having sex with him. This happened until this guy was 18. And not only was she having sex, she would actually bring in an adult male who she would start to have a sexual relationship with that adult male. So can you imagine the mind of a 13, 14-year-old boy who thinks has a relationship with an adult female, and she just brings in another guy and is like, you know, get over it. I mean, that's emotional abuse. And yet, this guy then goes on to become a sexual offender himself. So he's locked up and the woman just continues to live her life. And in other cases, you hear about women who have sex with 13-year-old boys or teenagers. And when that guy becomes a man, she wants child support. She raped the guy and then wants to rape him again for child support. And you don't understand why men are concerned about women abusing the system when they can be guilty and the consequences for women are very little. Slap on the wrist. They don't serve the same kind of time. Our society doesn't want that statutes of limitations. Otherwise, that guy who's on my show, if that was a woman who had been raped from 13 to 18 by a foster father, women would want to go after him no matter how old he was. But women seem to think, well, at least he was getting laid. He was lucky. Yeah, ladies. And then they become the sexual offenders who you want to castrate and hang, punish. So this woman's saying instead of knee-jerk reactions, an organization should have clear steps in place so when a complaint comes in, there's a standardized way to handle it. it's mind-boggling that doesn't already exist. I mean, why haven't women been fighting for this? The only reason you want to fight for it now is because you see that it's actually backfiring and working against you. So now you want to... the only reason you're thinking about this is because you found out that it's not working. That, as I said, women don't look at the big picture in the long term. Long term, this is coming back to haunt you. If men just shut you out, a lot of you won't move up. For some reason, you won't help. Women won't mentor one another. The other part is to build trust. So, listen, you want to build trust. You have a country has a culture, and corporate America is within the culture of the country. You cannot have corporate America without including the country, the culture of the country. And ladies, you have eroded trust with men. Child support courts. 30% of women get pregnant by some guy outside of their marriage, have the child, and still want to keep the baby. It was so funny. They did a genealogy project in some elementary schools around the country. And it was, having pride of where your family's from. And so they had the children go home and take a swab so they can do DNA tests and to find out where the parents, so you understand your roots, the roots of your parents. Well, what they found is 30% of the children were not children of their father. That means their mother was impregnated by some guy outside the marriage and allowed the husband to raise this child as his own. They killed that project because of what they were finding. And interesting, and so you ladies now all of a sudden want to talk about trust. You take undermining tactics to get men to drop down. You want to call us toxic just for being men. Listen, a high-performing man is a high-performing man, whether it's as an attorney, a finance executive, HR, CEO, I don't care what it is, project manager. We're going to be high-performing just like we are on the football field or baseball field or basketball court. You go on it. And if we allowed women, they'd actually move into sports and try to demand that men lower our competitiveness, our aggressiveness in sports, just so women could compete. That's literally what you're doing in corporate America. How do you ever think that's going to work? So now you want to talk about building trust. At the root of the fear expressed by men is a belief that they won't be believed if falsely accused. Combat this misperception by working to increase transparency in your harassment prevention program and practices. While you can't reveal specific information about individual cases, you can share aggregated information about your organization's efforts as a company to combat harassment. This can include overall investigation, statistics, remedial actions that have been taken, blah, blah, blah. Making sure it's confidential. Why haven't women been fighting for this from the beginning? Why do things have to backfire for you to actually think about doing what's right? Is that something that's hard for women to understand, that in the big picture, the scheme of things, doing what's in the best of all of your stakeholder is what's right? You have to find out that your tactics backfired and you're losing as a result. The third one is train managers. Managers have an obligation not to engage in discrimination. They also have an obligation to protect their livelihood, their career, the professions they've worked so hard at. So if you're asking a man to choose between risking my family and my livelihood to make sure a woman moves up, that's ridiculous. You're going to lose. Why aren't you speaking to women about what's in the best interest for their career in the organization? Why aren't you? These three solutions are training managers so that they don't discriminate. There's nothing about training women to stop lying. Ethics, integrity, where is that? Or is that not important to women? So here's how she closes. In the end, the behavior discussed in Davos and elsewhere is discriminatory and illegal. So is lying. It's setting women back, and it's harmful to all parties involved. Organizations should seize on this moment in time as an opportunity to learn and to make sure their employees learn the right lessons. Yeah, nothing in there about teaching women the right lessons and the right behavior. If you want to get on the playing field with men, learn to earn your keep. Hey, I'm not in favor of corporate politics. I say they are a huge distraction from performance. All the games and jockeying and political games, that's sort of a distraction from actually doing the job to perform. And people do that. It's one of the rules. I think leadership can do a great job of killing that. But this sexual false allegations has become part of corporate politics. So women have a uncanny ability to use undermining tactics, and it's only when it starts to backfire and undermine them. You know, this global pandemic is also, it's actually highlighting that. So all the undermining tactics that women have done, extorting child support, alimony, the courts are closed, and men are not working and can't pay. So all this like what, 75% of women who filed for divorce and still have children, what are you going to do? The father's not working. He can't pay. The courts can't enforce it. They can't do anything. See, this unexpected pandemic has backfired. Just like all these sexual harassment. A guy touches your shoulder. Oh, I felt uncomfortable. I want to see that guy lose his job. And we can get a woman in there. And once you put a woman in there, women often mostly hire other women. And they don't see that as discrimination. I mean, so instead of putting the best person in, you put in a woman who then hires other women. I actually watched a woman interview and said she looks at a woman's resume, even though she's not qualified, she believes that this woman has the potential. So she'll hire an unqualified woman and spend her time attempting to pull the most to get this woman to grow into the job. You don't hear women doing that for men. That's blatant discrimination, to hire an underqualified woman just because you want to get a woman in the position and have her grow into it. That's how you create mediocrity in organizations. In some cases, those women never grow into the job. So, I have a solution. And I'm going to tell you, our fathers and grandfathers, they allowed this to fester and to grow, like letting mold grow in your home. It's unhealthy. In fact, the Department of Health finds mold growing in your home to be a health hazard. Some homes have been destroyed for it. Well, we've actually allowed this to grow and to just germinate. It's now throughout our entire culture of the United States, and it's seeped into the corporation, even into sports. What I don't understand, our fathers and grandfathers, why didn't they take a stand in the 1970s when women said, we don't need a man, we want opportunity? Why didn't we just say, hey, here's a plot of land, you ladies can just, we got it, you don't need us. Why would we fight against you? Why would we be upset because women said they don't need a man? That's fine. You don't fight against it. This is analogous to imagine guys and females. Imagine you're happily married. You have a 30-year-old son. Your son graduates from a great college, and he still lives at home. He's 30. He works a part-time job at a gaming company, and he plays lots of video games at home. He doesn't contribute to food, to anything, washing his clothes. And imagine you, Pops, Dad, you've built your own legacy, a company, and you brought your son in to learn the business, and he's just not interested. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, he's not interested. And he wants to keep living with you. He eats your food. Your wife washes his clothes, cooks for him. He contributes nothing. Oh, well, he does, because any of your technology concerns, like your computer, he's done a stellar job of setting up your computer, giving you, tutoring you on how to use, you and your wife, on how to use your computer, your phone. He syncs them up in ways that are just incredible. He does a great job with that, right? So we have to acknowledge him for that. Great job. But he spends a lot of his time playing video games. And when he wants to have his friends come over and have a weed smoking party, you don't permit it. He complains about that. He complains about there not being the kinds of foods in the house that he wants. He complains. And you tolerate that. As a father, you just want to kick him out on his ass. But your wife, such a nurturing mother who always did so much for him, wants him to stay. And now he's 30. He's got his part-time job. And he's saying he doesn't need his parents. He's sick of you and your rules. He's tired of it. What do? You kick him out on his ass. And that's exactly what would have been the best thing to do in the 70s, in the late 60s, when women said they didn't need a man and they wanted to burn their bras. Let them burn their bras. Carve out some land. Let them go live there and build their own civilizations. They can build their own roads, their own cars, their airplanes, their manufacturing facilities, water supply, food. Grow their own food. Don't take any men with you. Just go. Give them an island. Give them an entire island. Let them build their entire civilization. You don't need us? Go. But for some reason, the men of the past, you sat back and let them watch you build entire industries. And then they demanded that they have a seat at the table. And if you ladies who say, well, the wives helped build it, they did, hey, you know what? Then go off and build your own. You know why? Because when guys like Donald Trump, he divorced Ivanka Trump, he had a prenup that she would get $99 million in case of a divorce. She contested that. I think she ended up getting like $105 million. Did she take that money and go out and be a billionaire real estate tycoon? No. Because she didn't know how to do that on her own. But $100 million is enough. She had a $99 million prenup. That wasn't enough. And she didn't replicate the results that her husband did. So ladies, why don't you, one, just carve out some land, cut down the trees, build your own cars, your trucks, your own chainsaws, build your own stuff. And just go off in a corner and show us how it's done. Show us how you're going to have this peaceful, no crime, no domestic violence. Just go. Go. You have our blessings. And I'm sure the men are not going to try and hold you back. You want to go? Just go. Because it's better off having you go than have like the 30-year-old who's old enough to live on his own and he won't. So while you ladies say you don't need us, you drive on our roads, you wear the shoes that we create, you use the computers and the software, you have social media, all these things, the gold industry, the oil industry, water supply, all of these things created by men, you use them, yet you don't need us. And if you don't have the spine, the chutzpah to do that, then instead of saying you want men to mentor you and show you how to become high-performing executives like men, the other solution is to just go get female investors and build your own company. Create your own car companies, your shoe companies, your water supply. Just create your own. And this nonsense about women haven't had the opportunities, at least from the 1920s, women have been millionaires. And you fast forward 50, 60 years from the 20s, you have women who have been billionaires, right? Not just multimillionaires. But if you go back to the 20s, you had Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, right? You had the Carnegies, you had the Astors, you had all these women who inherited millions upon millions of dollars. So they could have invested in an all-woman company. Gloria Vanderbilt at some point created jeans. Instead of creating jeans, she could have created a software company or a computer or social media. She could have done something else with her money. She didn't. But right now, ladies, you're like that 30-year-old who says you can do better than your parents. Okay. The best solution, the perfect solution, ladies, is to go build your own company, hire only women, have all your executives, your training, your consultants. Don't take anything from us. Be like that 30-year-old. Just go. Go. I don't understand why you women won't do that. You want to come to a table built by men and demand the seat at the table that you didn't help build. That's like the 30-year-old demanding certain food be in the house or dinner be prepared at a certain time, and you didn't contribute to the household. Yet you want to make demands. The 30-year-old who says it's not fair that you can't have parties at the house. You want to have authority in a place where you created nothing. You're pouting like a 30-year-old child who's not given a fair and just opportunity. The perfect solution is for you to start building female-only companies. There are plenty of female investors. There are plenty of executives in corporate America who have gotten the training. You can now transfer that over. I want to hear in the comments why you women won't do this. Why won't you just carve out your own land? Create your own country. And if you need to be impregnated, I'm sure there are plenty of men who will volunteer. But you know what? You don't even need that. You have sperm banks, right? You can raise children without us. But if you had to have men come in, we'd start charging you. But you can create a sperm bank. I hear Australia created artificial sperm, and I don't know who created the artificial egg, but technology is pretty advanced. So you could still perpetuate mankind. I can't imagine how you would train and raise boys in that kind of environment. But I want to hear from the comments. Fellas, I want to hear your thoughts about this being the ultimate and the perfect solution for women to just go off and create their own companies. As men, stop pandering. Do not allow them to lower the bar. Let them go off and create their own. I love women. Like telling us how to operate and how to think in environments that we created. That's out of bounds. You don't come onto the football field and say, hey, don't hit that guy. That's my son. Don't hit my son so hard. No, I'm going to break his ribs. And I'm going to compete the same way with the same mindset in corporate America. So I want to hear your thoughts about this conversation. I want to hear your thoughts about this solution to dealing with sexual harassment and so-called discrimination. I want to hear your thoughts about that article the woman wrote. Did I miss something? Do you have a better solution than what I created? So share this video, subscribe to my channel, like this video. And if you don't like it, dislike it. Tell me why you don't dislike it. I want to hear, if you have the balls, tell me why you don't like it. But this is a message that needs to go to all men. That there's some stand that we need to take. So share this video. Share it. Comment. And I'm going to put my Cash App. I'm looking for your support so that I can give even greater knowledge and wisdom from my training, development, research, and experience. So I look forward to your comments. I look forward to engaging all of you. And until my next video, take care, everyone. Bye.